That new music just hits right, doesn't it? I love it. Let us know in the comments what you think of the new music. Those OGs out there will know what we've changed up a little bit. Welcome to Soaring Prophets. I'm Patrick. That's James. And we've got a very special guest today. But before we get to Elizabeth Kelly, very cool stuff on the go. Those of you that have been checking out our finance side, financial fitness, new show launched today with my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Burnham-Grubbs, called Wealthwise. Our first episode went out this afternoon. Had a great episode there. We're going to be doing that on a monthly schedule. Roll it.
Well, hi. We are here and we're so excited to start talking with you guys about your money. And we're so sick of hearing everybody else's opinions. And we decided to kind of just put our own mouths to action and share some perspectives that you might not have heard before when it comes to finance. What do you think, Patrick?
Well, I am just thrilled to be here. I am joined by the beautiful Jennifer Burnham-Grubbs, myself, Patrick from Soaring Prophets podcast, Soaring Prophets Media. And that's exactly right, Jennifer. We're here taking a little different angle on this. There's so many of the talking heads. There's so many of the pundits out there that they're doing their piece. And we're trying to give a different perspective on the world of finance, the world of politics, what's going on around us, and especially going into some kind of tumultuous times. Make sure to join us, like, subscribe, and share, and make sure to check out Jennifer.
Oh my God.
Always got
you guys are freaking adorable. The chemistry that comes out, you gotta watch it. The show just was launched today. It is amazing. You're gonna learn a lot. We already have some comments about what we're gonna do for our next show. I'm pretty excited. Speaking of next shows, we did Hot Seat with the Tongarians, a podcast out of the States, and the amazing Mark Reed out of Japan. And here's a little clip from that. I hope you enjoy it.
Again, you are estimating value in Japanese yen. So what we have here is a lovely solar-powered Seiko watch made entirely in Japan, elegant enough to be worn with a suit and tie in the courtroom, yet stylish and simple enough to wear with your Bermuda shorts and Crocs on the beaches of Prince Edward Island. That is a genuine leather wristband with a titanium casing. And did I mention it was a Seiko? What is the retail value in Japanese yen?
I'm telling you, so much going on right now. It's been kind of crazy. It was a lot of fun doing the show. James, what was the show all about?
So it is called The Hot Seat, and it is a game show that we conceived. The amazing mind of Mark Reed is unbelievable. He has taken from childhood games like the Whammy Show and Let's Make a Deal from when I was a small child. And also there's a little bit of Japan in there. I don't know if you guys have ever watched a Japanese game show. He's put a little bit in it. There's some running around the room trying to find stuff. And it's just, basically having fun with each other and a little bit about making fun of each other, which is a lot of fun, especially when I get to make fun of that guy up there.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us back to tonight. We appreciate you sticking through the promos, sort of what we're doing right now. But you guys know what we do on Thursday night here with Soaring Prophets is that our goal is to take the champions in our communities, people that, otherwise, CNN's not knocking down the door to get interviews with these people, but they really do change our world. And they change our view on how we interact with our lives. And that's Elizabeth Kelly here today joining us. So Elizabeth, she's going to tell you a lot about her past, but she started this for the love of self.coach. You can go online right now. You can check it out. And this woman is really, she's went through the fire herself. She's come out the other side, and now she's advocating for yourself. She's teaching you, she's showing you pathways through that. Elizabeth Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and be on the show with you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Elizabeth, why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about your story? Because again, when you jump on the website, it's a kind of it's a hard one. You've lived a life, you've been through it, and now you're out the other side and you're working with people on the daily, getting them through their struggles in their current time. Tell us about where you came from and where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about my story. I roughly 4.5 years ago got rattled awake when I was beaten to the ground by my ex-husband's boss's daughter. Try to say that 3 times fast. And it rattled me awake for sure and made me realize I wasn't in alignment and congruent with the life I wanted to be living. And so quickly thereafter, I kind of had that conversation and said, this isn't working. I walked away and completely started over, because after a couple weeks of that, I lost my job. I obviously left my home and my marriage and everything I knew for the first half of my life, basically. And so I found myself in this dark hole where I just started being promiscuous and drinking all the time, to the point of just not valuing my life anymore, not knowing where I belonged, what I wanted, what I needed. And one night I was out and being reckless as usual and tried to throw myself out of a moving vehicle. And my friend, kept trying to grasp my shirt and pull me in. And so I was like, well, I'll fix that. And I just started taking my clothes off. And it just kind of became this, survivor situation. And to the point where thankfully my mother wasn't too far. She threw me on my mother's front lawn, and I quickly had to sober up. And mom said, okay, you're getting on a plane, you're going to rehab. Like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, I blamed a lot of the drinking on my husband. I blamed pretty much everything on my ex-husband. And I was very much in that victim state of, all of this is happening to me. And sobriety really woke me up, and it made me realize that it was time to own my own shit and stop blaming everybody else for it and start picking myself up and doing something about it. And so I did just that. I got the help I needed. I did the 12 steps, was going to AA, was doing the work. And I rebuilt my life. And from there, I decided, what I'm doing isn't what I want to be doing. And that's how I came into the coaching field, because I myself had always, throughout the years, had coaching and someone that helped me in my work and in my career. And so I was familiar with the idea of coaching, but never really practiced it, but always something I wanted to pursue. And around this time, I found out that my ex was remarrying, and it just kind of, again, derailed me. And so within 3 months, I had my whole house packed up and moved 10 hours away to North Carolina and started over, where I found myself in another dark hole of depression, because I had no idea who I was anymore. I wasn't, the wife, the mom. I wasn't happy in my career. I started getting really sick, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I, on Facebook, scrolling like all of us do. And there was this 5-day challenge for coaching. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And I loved it. She definitely sold me well. And I signed up and I went through the certification. And I quickly from there just dove in the deep end and started doing the coaching thing. And I love it. And I love that I can now take all of that pain that I carried for so long and all of my own experiences and heartaches, and use that for a purpose to help others and to give back.
Well, there's an old adage in the sports world: those who can't do coach. And it's sort of goes to what you're doing with this. These are all things you don't want to be doing anymore, right?
Yeah.
You want to be quitting these sorts of things, these behaviors, these ironically enough, those who can't coach. And it's such a unique perspective that you've went through the fire. James and I, and what we do here with Soaring Prophets, we see people all the time, and we have so many people reaching out to us now. We're sort of at that level where people are reaching out to us in regards to wanting to be on the show. And you do a quick little dive into them, and they're sort of hokey, right? And where you've come along, and it's like you've been through the fire. You've touched all of this. You can sit down across from a young lady or a young man and be like, hey, listen, you want to talk about it? I've been there. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've walked through the fire, and I'm out the other side, and I'm way happier. I'm way more satisfied. My life beams now. And you can tell you're a beautiful young lady. You have that about you, that you're beaming from that. What do you say when somebody comes to you and says, hey, listen, Elizabeth, I'm in this deep, dark place in my life right now. How can you help me? How does your coaching change from somebody else? What is your personal experience? What does that bring to the table? What do you say back to them?
I think the first thing that we talk about is just feeling comfortable sitting in your emotions and feelings. What I have found through this work is a lot of people are very uncomfortable feeling their feelings. Some don't even know what they're feeling, to be quite honest.
Yes.
And a majority of people don't really know what they want. They know what they don't want, but they don't know what they want. And so at first it's, okay, well, tell me how you're feeling. And I hear, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, well, let's sit with that. Let's really kind of sit together. I'll create that space for you and let's figure it out. And I think it's just creating that emotional safety for that person to feel what they need to feel and creating that space to let them feel it. From there, it's really removing the judgment that we place on ourselves, because so many of us are our own worst critics and we're just believing everything we think. And it's keeping us up at night. It's making us crazy. It's keeping us stuck. We're overwhelmed. We're tired. And we just want out, right? So it's, how do we take these negative thoughts that just spiral in our head all day and all night, and how do we turn those into something that are serving us and a little better, right? And so we work through that through a 4-step process of reframing your mindset and helping you start showing yourself love and compassion versus judgment.
Right.
And once we're able to kind of move through those couple steps, then we're starting to really be able to move into a place where we've built trust, we have that connection, everyone's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable and confident and feeling a little better. And then we can start working on some of the skill sets. So, you know, another big piece of this is we're not taught as children necessarily, not all of us anyway, how to set boundaries, how to have effective conflict and communication, right? Like how to build trust and confidence in ourselves. So we go through some of those skill sets and really start learning how to be able to say the word no, which presents a lot of problems for a lot of people. They don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
Right.
And learning to be able to really start prioritizing their needs and their wants. And then it's looking at, okay, so who are you? What do you like? What do you want? What do you need? How do you share that with people? Like, how do you tell people what you like and want? How many times have you and someone else been back and forth for what do you want for dinner? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times this conversation comes up and it's like, well, I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? And so I use this example all the time and I'm like, okay, so you don't have to say, I want to go and get Chinese, but you also can say, hey, give me a minute. Let me think on it. Just get centered. Like, trust yourself enough to know that if you just sit and think about it for a minute, you'll probably know what you want. And you might not know where you want to go, but you might know what kind of food you want and can at least offer that and then come to a decision, right? So I think a lot of times we're looking outside of ourselves for the things we want because we don't trust ourselves to know, versus looking within and saying, hey, I got this. I know what I want. And so it's a lot of that kind of work, just working through different scenarios and situations. And then we create a blueprint, right? And we're saying, okay, let's talk about this. Now, what do you want tomorrow to look like? What do you want a year from now to look like, right? Let's start putting some of those goals in place and backing into them and really creating who Elizabeth Kelly is, who this person is. What do you want? What do you want that to look like? And then putting that together. So it is a process. And everybody goes through it in their own time frame. Some it takes a few months, some it takes longer. But you know, a lot of the progress I've seen from people is if you do the work, it will work, and you will get through it, and you'll be able to do it in a timely fashion. It's all on you.
You said so many amazing, important things in that. The first one that I love is that you don't go, let's dive in, tell me all about, you know, your abuse, your alcohol, there's a moment of, where are you at? That is so important because I've seen a couple of different counselors, and some are like that, where they just want to dive right in and like they don't have time. Well, I'm paying for your time, so you know, let's take some time until I trust you, because I don't want to open my doors for anybody that I don't trust. So I love that you take that time to build that trust and just allow them to be, because in the world of trauma, which obviously a lot of the people you work with in the world of trauma, there is no time to trust. And a lot of it is, especially childhood trauma, life trauma, they develop reactions, the fight, flight, fawn, right? And a lot of times it's fawn. And that's why you have that indecision piece that you've been talking about, that fawn indecision piece. I can't make a decision because if I do, I'm going to get a negative reaction. When you have trauma, you're so hypersensitive to the people around you that you don't want to upset the apple cart so badly that you will find out everything about that person to make sure that you can preemptive strike and make sure it's chill and okay. So are you finding that's kind of a hard piece, like that's part of the part of, I don't know what I want because I've never sat down to think about what I want because I'm too busy trying to make my world safe by figuring out what all the people around me want so that I can feel safe.
Yes. And there's a lot of people that, anticipatory, right? Like they're trying to, plan on, okay, if this happens, then I'll do this, right? So their whole life is kind of has to be in the safety zone where it's planned out and anticipated what could happen just to keep themselves safe. And there's a lot of people pleasers, a lot of codependents that are they will do anything to keep everything okay, to the point of they're not taking care of themselves at all. They don't even know who they are. They're so disconnected from self because everything about them is just about the other person. So it's really kind of retraining that conditioned self and being able to say, okay, here kind of understanding first and foremost, just creating awareness around it and understanding, and then being able to just start noticing some of those patterns that are coming up in your day to day. Now let's start decommissioning them. And how can we do that in a way that feels safe and okay for you? Because a lot of the times, you have to create that safety first, because I have also a lot of clients who are in that, just stress response horribly, where they can't even sit because their nervous system is so out of whack, and a lot of anxiety. So, depending on where they're at is how we start.
Yeah, no, and that's so important. Like that trauma response is always there. One, as a therapist, no, I'm not saying I'm not a therapist, but as a coach or anything that you are, you don't really know them well enough to help them, because like you could come in with a cologne and it could cause them to go into that fawn fight flight. You could say a certain series of words. Part of the problem, especially with like abuse kind of cases, is that a person has come in on a level of trust that if you've never experienced it, you wouldn't understand. They were the nicest, kindest, most wonderful person. They bought flowers, they sang songs, they did everything that you liked and wanted. Yep. And then they slowly turned. How do you trust anyone after that? How do you trust a therapist that seems kind, that you're alone in a room with, when you know that this person could turn at any point? This person, if I open up to them, can use my words against me. I could tell them about a childhood trauma and they could turn it on me because that's what I'm used to. Are you finding that's kind of a barrier in your coaching?
Yeah, I think it's important to establish trust for sure, but I think first and foremost, you have to have that trust with you first and foremost, because I think it's really hard when we don't trust ourselves. And a lot of times when we're coming out of a bad relationship where that trust has been broken, it's getting centered and learning how to kind of, and I always say this, like, be the tree trunk, right? That doesn't blow over when there's a windstorm. Like, you got to create the foundation, and you have to you have to learn how to be those things for yourself. And that's hard when you've never been able to do that. And so once you're able to kind of work through and just get to that safety place where you do feel safe enough to explore anything else, then we can start working on some of the trust stuff. But I always say we got to look within and be that person for ourselves, because then if the wind blows, we're not going to get blown over, right? We're going to still be able to know how to work through that and how to stand on our own 2 feet. But we got to start with us.
So, Elizabeth, what are some of the things that when, you're having those conversations, right? when you're saying to somebody, you know, you got to be the tree trunk, what are some actionable steps? And that's sort of my thing when it comes to counseling and therapy and coaching, for instance, right? James and I are a little bit different. I'm kind of more inward looking, like I'll deal with myself, right? I struggle with that sometimes and opening up to other people, right? So I have my very close little group of people that know everything about my life and I trust in, you know, completely. And then the thought of going to a coach scares the bejesus out of me. Like that would be a real 100%. 100%.
Why?
Well, so I think there's a gender thing. Guys know predominantly, right? And especially, so my backstory, the profiteers out there know mine a little bit. So I was a young father. I have full custody of my daughter, who's 14 years old, have had for many years. I'm a problem solver. Don't come to me with problems. I'll just solve them. That's how it works, right? So when I think of the issues or the daily things that I stumble across, like everyone does, everyone has, I just take massive action or I don't. That's sort of the two ways it goes. Either I go, that's not really a problem, I'm not dealing with it, or I'm 100% all in on that problem. But when you say, how do you solidify yourself? How do you become the tree, right? The tree trunk in there, it's not going to blow over. That's not something that myself personally I've ever had a problem with. I'm sort of a strong personality, one would say. I got a podcast. They gave me a mic. Some idiot gave me a mic, right? But that's where I hear you. But that's often where I ask. It's like, okay, so how do you break down my shell? Because that's what it is at the end of the day. If I was going in and I was going to have a session with you, you got to break me a bit. What does that look like?
Well, and one of the things I was actually going to say is when you were talking about if somebody comes to me with a problem, I just want to fix it. And to me, there's a problem right there, right? Because it's not up to you to fix anything for anybody. It's up to them to fix that for themselves. So I would say, what makes you so uncomfortable that you can't let people figure that out for themselves and you have to jump in and fix it for them?
Well, because they're incompetent, Elizabeth. I'll just do it and make it easy for everybody. No, I kid. But a lot of the situations. So I remain a single father. I'm not married, right? I've never remarried or anything like that. I was never married to begin with. But you know, most of the problems and most of the scenarios are in regards to the well-being of my family. So I became the primary caregiver of my daughter at a very young age, single father doing that. My parents both got very sick. I became their primary caregivers. I lost my father 2 years ago now to cancer. My mother still lives with me, who is onset dementia. Like there's a lot of problems that I deal with on a daily basis that if I don't, no one else does. But I take great pride in that. Where other people might go, oh, man, I can't go out with the boys to the hockey game tonight, or I can't go to X, Y, or Z. I take so much pride in the ability that my daughter at 14 years old is honor roll student, you know, provincial. This is the old provincial championship hat that I'm rocking today for athletic, remarkable young lady. I take so much inner pride in that, where other people would look at that as I'm stuck. I'm not where necessarily my friends or family might think I should be in this realm. I just take so much pride in my family. So I look at it slightly differently. But again, that's if I was coming to you with a problem, you got to break that nut. You got to get down to everyone has something. Like I'm unsatisfied in some area. How do we break that down?
I can help. Let me break the nut. No, I'm just kidding.
You probably could. I'm sure you could, James.
Oh, maybe, but I'm not going to. Go ahead. You take a crack there, Elizabeth.
No, but you know, honestly, Patrick, I think it's just really, it's me. There's a few things, right? It's creating space for you, giving you a safe space to come and be able just to open up, because a lot of times we don't make that space for ourselves. And that's really what coaching is really creating a space for someone to come in and feel what they need to feel. That's my job, is giving space for you to feel what you need to feel and explore, and me to help you work through that. Now, another part of it is just asking questions that you probably want to ask yourself, right? So it's doing a little bit of discovery and a deeper dive. So I would, be asking you a little bit more about your situation, and kind of uncovering some of those things that you might not be thinking about necessarily. And then we could kind of talk through that, and then different things we can do to work through that. Like all of my clients, every session, they're getting homework.
Right.
And it's not because I'm a teacher and I'm giving my students homework. It's because all of this is like anything, it takes practice. It's really rewiring how we choose to think about things. Now, I think you have a very healthy attitude on how you approach things and think about things, because a lot of times what happens is we aren't choosing to be grateful and to see things, from a positive perspective. We're just looking like, woe is me. Oh my gosh, my life sucks. It's awful. I don't have what I need. And da 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 da. Versus being able to say, wow, you know what? I'm grateful because I woke up this morning. Wow,
Sure.
I'm grateful because I have 2 legs and I can go for a walk if I want to, right? Or I can see the sunset. But it takes really honest effort every day to practice that, and to really practice gratitude and being grateful and thankful for the things we have. And that's another skill that, not everyone practices all the time. And so, like myself included, years ago, I was sitting in the victim state. I was blaming the world for everything and anything I could, and where did it get me? Right. But when I stopped doing that and I was able to turn that around and really kind of say, hey, this is on me. I either get to make this life the way I want, or, it's going to keep being the way it is.
Right.
And so it was up to me to kind of pick myself up and really make it something different. And that's what I help people do.
Yeah,
you bring up like an interesting point there about the blame game. Like I did that a lot. I blame my father because he didn't want me to become an actor, and I really wanted to become an actor, and he gave me all the negative reasons why I shouldn't be an actor. And I was like, he's probably right. But really, I was just taking my fear, adding it to what he was saying, and now I could blame him for not doing it. And then I had a wife, ex-wife now, but at the time, I would come up with these great ideas that I throw at Pat daily. He knows the pain and suffering my wife probably dealt with. But she would only see the negative, whereas Pat does see the positive once in a while. But she would only see the negative. And it was very easy for me because some of the ideas I have, Pat will attest, are very hard to accomplish. And they're very scary. So now I have an excuse. I can say, well, my wife didn't want to do it, so how can I do it? I'm so busy. And it's so easy to hold yourself back because you think someone else is doing it to you. My wife, ex-wife, was not responsible for my happiness at no point. It does not matter what she said, what she did. My happiness started when I chose my happiness.
Yeah.
I was still married when I started becoming happy. I chose to lose weight. I chose to stop doing what I was doing. At one point, Pat was picking me up out of snowbanks. I'm not a drinker. I really am not. But I became one. I became closest to an alcoholic as I've ever been. I was a successful alcoholic. I didn't drink during work, but I couldn't wait to drink with my buddies when I wasn't on work. And that was just another way to hide from that fear of I knew I had to leave my ex-wife. I knew I had to embark on new things. So how do you get people who, I know you get them to center themselves, and that is so important, but there still is that unrealistic fear that you talked about. I went to another place. I had to start all over. And then, and unfortunately you chose the wrong way and it's likely because of fear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you help them through those moments and say, you know what, you will be safe? What's your way of doing that?
I just before I answer that, I would like to say I know that there is a lot of projecting out there, right? And it's just like, my mother always projected onto me because she didn't get to fulfill her dream. She projected onto me, okay, well, you're going to go out there and you're going to go to finish school. You're going to go to college. You're going to get a good job. You're going to marry and do the whole thing, right? And when I didn't live up to those expectations, I thought something was wrong with me because I wasn't who I thought I was supposed to be, right? So we have to be careful of how much we listen to other people's opinions and feedback. And that's where getting really centered in ourselves and knowing who we are is so important. But to answer your question, as far as the fear goes, fear is one of those things it's not always used in the right way, right? And it's
Yes.
fear can be used and it can hold us back or it can propel us forward, and we get to decide. And for a long time, fear held me back. I was so afraid of like hurting people and upsetting things and ruining things and failing and all these things. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, and I think it helped me learn that I could be afraid and still do it once I started doing it, right? And so again, it's all a mindset. It's all how we choose to look at it. And so again, that's really where we do the conversations about, okay, so you're afraid that you're going to fail, but how else can you look at that? What else could be true about this? What if you could succeed? What if you could do it and succeed? What would that look like? Because then when we start thinking about that, then guess what happens? People start getting hope and they're like, whoa, you're right. I can do this. Yeah. And I'm going to help you do that, right? Because they have to start believing that they can do it. And it doesn't mean you're not going to fail, and it doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, but you can do it if you don't give up on yourself and you believe you can and you keep doing it, right? So again, I think it's all mindset and how we choose to look at it.
Elizabeth, I know that we're a little bit crushed for time here today. You got some other commitments, and you were great enough to squish us in here in your busy time. But it really is like when you're saying there, so few people have a group of people in their corner that are giving them the proverbial that a boy. I'm proud of you. You've done something amazing here, and sometimes that in and of itself is enough to motivate somebody to do some really incredible action. And it's very cool. Your story, when we first took a look at you here, when you first jumped on the podcast and we were chatting with you, your story is incredible. You should be incredibly proud of what you're doing and helping people. And from the depths of despair where you were, like jumping out of cars, really, that's a tough one, right? And then to where you are today. So first of all, I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I also want to congratulate you. I want to give you that a boy, because it's one of the gender not specific, right? Like, come on. But it really truly is that's a really remarkable turnaround story. And I wish you nothing but the best. We've enjoyed our conversation today. I hope we stay in contact with you. I'm sure we will. And we'll go from there. So Profiteers, you know me, guys. We've got some really cool things. You saw a bit of that earlier in the show, but we're continuing to bring you really inspiring people. We're unveiling those stories of champions. Elizabeth is no different than that. And we're always privileged that you folks come, you join us. Hopefully you're liking, subscribing, and sharing, sending it to somebody that maybe needs this. Maybe somebody that maybe it's a youth. Maybe it's somebody, from your bridge club. I don't know what organization you're with, but maybe they're just a little bit off right now. Send them the link. Show them Elizabeth's story. Show them where she came from. You don't have to be jumping out of cars, but maybe you're not satisfied where you are right now. But for me, folks, as always, let's make some money together. James.
Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on, being a vulnerable, sharing your story, and giving us some intuition into what can be instead of what is. Right. So many of us hit that point of impact, like you were talking about, which is how I referred to that point when you're jumping out of a car, you're drinking too much, and you just wake up the next morning, you're like, oh my God, if something doesn't change, I'm dead. And that's the moment that you have to be caught. And that's the moment that you need either someone to guide you, someone to talk to, or someone that can at least listen and hear what you need to say. And I think you're that person. Pat said at the beginning of the show, and it's interesting because we have these conversations now. Now we're at that point where we have people asking to be on our show like basically every day. And so I really have to do a deep dive into who they are, because a lot of them are coaches, and not all coaches are created equal. Some coaches are just in it because it's very popular to have a coach right now. It's very popular. And when you get into them, they're about the money. They're about, watch this video, it'll change your life. And it really is just all those catchphrases. But talking to you today, I know that you are the real deal, knowing that
Thank you.
When you first meet a person, that's not the time to tell them what they need to know. That's the time to listen and create a safe space so they can share themselves, build that trust, so that they can move forward on their journey, not your journey, not what you think their journey is, on their journey. And that's what you're doing. And that's beautiful. And I love it. And I just want you to know that we do screen the people that come on, and you are one of those people that we really wanted to. Your story is amazing, but what you're doing now is even more important. Your story is horrific. And if profiteers out there, go check out her link and see it. There's more to her story that she didn't share, that she went through to get to the place she is to now, this confident, powerful woman that's helping other people. And you know that that's what we love on Soaring Prophets. We have so many great things going on. We got Humane Society footage coming out every Friday now. We have the hot seat. We have this beautiful show with Jennifer Burnham Grubbs called Wellness, which is
Wealthwise.
Wealthwise.
Yeah.
I was going to call it Wealth Wellness, but I didn't like it. So Wealthwise. And I may have, I don't know, old age syndrome. All of these great things are coming down the pike. I have more ideas than you can shake a stick at for new shows.
I can attest. The 4 a.m. text messages are obnoxious at this point.
But I have changed them from, you know what? Okay, fine. I give up. Just we'll do a podcast. Just stop asking me. To now he is coming to me with his own ideas, and it is beautiful. So you guys keep watching, because the Soaring Prophet brothers are going to do some huge things, and we're going to change the world one podcast at a time, much like Elizabeth. Elizabeth, here's your time to shine. I want you to, first of all, tell us how to get in contact with you. What's the best way to, like, you know, when is the best time to reach out to you, and what kind of things you're looking for in order to help people. And then if you can reach out through the screen, touch like you just did, and touch the person out there that maybe is at their point of impact. Maybe last night they you know, drank too much. Maybe they're hurting. What would you say to them to bring them back? Profiteers out there, you know I love you. If you're alone right now, if you're hurting right now, reach out to someone, please. That is the most important thing you can do. I don't care if you're at a bar and you look over at a stranger and you start telling your story. That first time that you tell your story is the hardest, but is the most impactful, because that's when your heart opens up, and that's when you're ready to talk to other people, the right people. Anyway, let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. Elizabeth, I'm sorry I'm long-winded. Go ahead.
Okay. No worries. Thank you. Yeah, so you guys can find me. The best place is on my website, which is fortheloveofself.coach. You can also always email me at elizabeth@fortheloveofself.coach. I like to keep it easy. I am on Facebook and Instagram, so feel free to check me out there as well. But I really am excited to reach out and help anybody that is looking for just a safe space to just come to feel like they can feel what they need to feel, work through some of their challenges, and get the support. You know, certainly the one thing that helped me when I was going through all of that was community, right? Having that person I could pick up the phone and call when I was really struggling and having a hard time. And that is my mission. I just want to be there to help somebody that doesn't have anybody and needs somebody. And, you know, I believe that if we love from the inside out, we can do anything. We have to start with us. It starts with us. We have to be self-disciplined and take that responsibility. And, you know, as my tagline says, I love me so you don't have to, right? Because I truly believe if we can stand in our own skin and like ourselves and look in the mirror and feel good, then, you know, we want to be the coffee and have anyone else be the creamer, right? We don't want to play the Jerry Maguire. We don't want people fulfilling us and completing us. That's not the point of all of this. The point is, right, that we come together as two wholes. So I love to debunk the Jerry Maguire. So I work with a lot of people that are going through sobriety, relationship challenges, big transitions. But anyway, if that is you and you would like some help or want to talk, again, the link is at the bottom for theloveofself.coach. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing.
Amazing.
As always, folks, thank you so much.
Bye.